and burn.
Hey everybody. So yeah, I mean the thumbnail led you here. And assuming we go by everything official to do with John Connor's age and Sarah Connor's age, at least regarding the first two Terminator movies, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now, in my opinion, I think most people's opinion, there are only two Terminator movies because the rest of them have been kind of garbage. But I will quickly reference the third one because the Sarah Connor's birthday in the third one, she's listed as being born in 1959 in the third Terminator, which makes a lot more sense than the age that we're led to believe she is in the first two. Because in the first movie, all we know is her birth date is not given, but she's about 19 years old. She is 19 in 1984, okay? She meets Kyle, she gets pregnant. She has John in February. I think John is born February 28th, 1985. And then T2 takes place in, I'm assuming, the summer of 1995, where John Connor is supposed to be 10. Now, the thing was, Edward Furlong, he was born in 1977. So when this was being filmed, he was 13, 14. And that was the age. Like when I saw this movie in theaters way back when I was a kid, we all assumed he was our age because he was riding around on a dirt bike with his buddy. He was ripping off ATMs, which of course we weren't ripping off ATMs at this point. What we used to do is we used to steal Nob Hill baskets from Nob Hill Farms, because whenever you returned baskets to Nob Hill Farms, you got a toonie. You got $2 for it. So we used to go into people's backyards and steal the Nob Hill baskets. And that's how we got easy money, like Connor does in the movie. But we definitely weren't riding around on dirt bikes because that just doesn't make sense either. If he is supposed to be 10 years old, I just can't see his foster parents. I don't care how much of a delinquent he is. I can't see any set of foster parents tolerating the wants and the whims of a 10-year-old. Like, if he is 13, 14, yeah, he's going to be starting to get to an age where they're not going to care about him anymore because they're just going to see him as a lost cause. So at 13, 14, I could totally buy him riding around the city on the dirt bike, parking it at the mall, stealing cash from an ATM. That all makes more sense. But for a 10-year-old to be able to do these things, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And so then the other thing too, the thing that jumped me off to this was the fact that I'm watching T2 for like the 1,000th time, and Dr. Silberman says that our next patient, she's 29 years old, and he's of course talking about Sarah. So Sarah's 29, and she was 19 when she, 1920 when she had John, and that's when it hit me. I was like, John's only 10 years old, and she's only supposed to be 29? I'm sorry, but she is not 29. Sarah Connor in T2 has to at least be in her early 30s, and she would be if we do go by the birth date on her tombstone, well, not the tombstone, in the crypt, in the third one. It says that she was born in 1959, and that means she would have been 25 years old in 1984, 85, as opposed to being 19. Because in 84, Linda Hamilton, I got the impression that she wasn't just fresh out of high school. I got the impression that she was in her early to mid-20s, she's working as a waitress, hadn't figured out exactly what she wanted to do with herself yet, because her roommate is very clearly in her mid-20s, and her roommate's boyfriend is very clearly in his mid-20s. Now, I'm not saying that a 19-year-old can't live with people who are in their mid-20s and be friends with people in their mid-20s, but she wasn't 19. She was in her mid-20s. So as horrible of a movie T3 might have been, God, that movie was fucking dumb. But, well, I did like how you got to see Skynet get booted up. But her being born in 59 makes a hell of a lot more sense, because that means in 1995, instead of her being 29, she would have been 35. Again, because in T2, she looks like she's in her early to mid-30s. So that makes a lot more sense. And John being 10, I mean, his buddy, played by Danny Cooksey, the guy that played Tim, he was 15, 16 during the time of filming. So you're telling me that his buddy Tim was supposed to be 10 as well? Because that just doesn't make sense. Tim is not 10. Tim is 14, 15, 16, and Connor, John is 13, 14, 15 at that point. Because there's no way in 1995 would anybody, well, not just in 95, there's no way now anybody would tolerate a 15, 16-year-old hanging out with a 10-year-old. That's just fucking strange. So that just doesn't make sense. I can't believe I missed this all these years. I've seen T2 1,000 times. And here I was a few days ago watching it, and Lieberman says that she's 29. And I'm like, no, she's not 29, because that would make John 10. There's no fucking way this kid is 10 years old. That's just dumb. So, yeah. So, I'm going to leave it there, because that just doesn't make sense. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little over 5.5 minutes while I discussed how the ages of John and Sarah Connor in the first two Terminator movies, or the second Terminator movie specifically, are all wrong and they just don't make sense. I'm getting out of here. You guys are amazing. Have a great night.